Hello and welcome to the development of a podcast. In this process, I'm going to show you how to develop a podcast from the perspective of what I know in business and from podcasting. We're just going to do a little play around right now because most people, when they're developing a podcast, they really don't know what it is that they want to talk about. So, let's go to the drawing board, shall we? I'm going to create a table in here, and we're going to play around a little bit. Podcasting. What could you talk about in relation to podcasting? I'm just going to play around with what I know. Me, I'm a creative. I have wealths of knowledge in multiple different arenas, multiple different areas, and I'm on the cusp of a lot of different things, but understanding how to streamline those things for what it is that I'm desiring to do in what order they need to be in, sometimes that can get confusing. And for yourself, if you're just starting out and you don't really know what it is and where you're going, you may find that it may be a little bit hard for you to develop and determine exactly what it is that you want to do to create a podcast. So let's play around with some concepts, shall we? For me, when I first started, I was an artist. How could an artist create a podcast when art seems like it's a very visual thing? Well, you know how you can do that? It's called YouTube. What you do is you create the podcast on a podcasting actual platform, but you do YouTube videos where you're showing art, you're talking to other artists, you're doing the interviews, you're developing what it is that you do, but you're creating a visual place for the art to be seen, but you're creating an audio place for people to hear. The only difference is you're going to give a lot of detailed information as to where these pieces of art can be seen as notations for the podcasters to be able to go back to and or link the podcast to the YouTube to allow people to say, okay, hey, come check out the YouTube page. You'll be able to see all the art and so on and so forth there. Catch 22 to that is people, because it's art, they may not go directly to the podcast initially unless it's something that they know they want to hear as opposed to see. So it may come off as a more visual thing than a audible thing. Next, fashion. When I was growing up, I was a fashion designer. I loved fashion. I used to redesign all of the pageant outfits. I used to do all of that type of stuff. Now, what would you do as a fashion person? Most people, red carpets. Most people, what's hot topics in fashion news right now? Where are we going? A lot of people want to know, where are we going in fashion right now? How is the fashion industry pivoting? What are they doing? So on and so forth. Can you give my best design in comparison to what was worn on the red carpet? What was she thinking? What was he thinking? Blah, 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 blah. All things that could be discussed in a podcast on fashion. Next, favorite food. I love food and desserts. So You can do a full podcast on straight food, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. You can talk about some of the hottest locations to go out and eat, especially now that things are opening back up. Praise Jesus. In areas all over your local city. Start going out. People want to know what places are open now. So what you could do is go to the actual locations, interview the places, what's new, where are they, what are their restrictions, so on and so forth. Because people want to get out, they want new things. They want to know places that they can not only go, but places that they can order in, because some people, they're not going to come out too quickly, even though things are opening back up. So they want to know good places that they can go that has really good food that you can go. You can do a YouTube channel where you can go and actually try the food, but you can do the audio interview of the people that work at those places. Boom. Desserts. Oh my God. Everybody loves desserts. You can start visiting bakeries. You can visit multiple different places. You can even cook your own desserts. You can talk about your favorite recipes. You can do all of these things as you are developing what it is that you are talking about for your show, especially as a chef. Same thing. You can do the same thing that you do for the food, but you're just doing it for desserts. Desserts, baking, so on and so forth. Next, writing. Maybe as a writer, you are an author or a content writer, which I do, or you write books, you write multiple different things, blogs, you name it, you do it. If you write, you could literally create not only a podcast but a blog. Quick and easy trick. If you are a writer and you're going to do a full-on podcast, you want to connect a blog to it. Most websites that if you create a podcast website in a website builder, it will have an extension page that you can create a blog. With the blog, you can develop, create your content. When you are recording your episodes, use an app called Otter. Otter will transcribe everything that you are saying into text. And you can take that text, put a nice picture to it in relation to the topic that you were talking about, or a couple of pictures in relation to the topics that you went through in that episode, post it in a blog, make sure it's edited and looking nice, post it up. So for every episode, you have audio, not only audio, but written content for people to be able to read. This also can work for the people that are artists, because the artists can put the artwork, video clips, and written write-ups on a blog for the people to be able to see. Maybe you're an interior designer. That's another good one, because I love interior design, and you want to talk about interior design. What you do is you start going out to locations, furniture places that you can see new interesting furniture. Museums are starting to open up. I love the exhibit that the Brooklyn Museum had about a year or two ago on the 4th floor, where they had all the old antique furniture from the 50s, 60s, 70s, even back in the 1800s, they had all of this, and they had vases and all these beautiful pieces of art in their uh, furniture pieces under cases. You can go to places like that if you're an interior designer and show off the old stuff, as well as going to places, people like, we've seen TV shows like Antique Roadshow and all of these types of things. Go and look up antiques, or you can go and look at present day furniture, things that can be used. You can go and if you know a realtor, you can tag along with them on an apartment tour, maybe, and just show off some of the apartments and how you could decorate them. Key little thing that I used to do, if you want to, you could create a YouTube channel, and if you have certain, I heard it's something called House Pro, which is a tool that you can use on your computer that you can literally create room by room interior designs, and you can add that as little extensions or pieces that you can do for your podcast in the blog side or the YouTube page side, but most of it will be conversation. What's going on in interior design? What's going on in real estate? What's going on with homes right now? How can you stage a house? All of these things, furniture, what are the new changes with the seasons, how people are doing their furniture for interior design. Um, Even you can talk about mock-ups even for stores, because interior design doesn't stop at homes. You can talk about store layouts, if there are store layouts that you're talking about, how those things can be done. Because I remember years ago I did a full store layout for one of my interior design courses, and I had to do it was interior design for entrepreneurship, and I had to do a full store layout. It's different than when you do a housing layout. You can talk about the differentiations depending on what it is that you're talking about. But these are all things that you can discuss or do a show topic on. Maybe you aren't into the artsy side. Maybe you aren't into creative side. Maybe you're into politics. I'm not going to stay on politics because nobody want to really talk about politics right now. But maybe you're on that end of the spectrum and you want to talk about politics, your views on certain situations and scenarios that are going on in society right now. Be careful about that, because certain platforms are censoring certain things, and that's all I'm going to say about that. So be wary of whether you want to go into those fields of conversation, depending on what it is that you're talking about. But you can talk about anything that you want to. Podcasting gives you an open door to discuss, develop, create, do multiple things, talk about multiple things, develop multiple things, because you're discussing and creating a conversation with people about what it is that you love, connecting with people that love the same thing that you love, and you're developing something new. You're developing something different. You're developing something that people have not seen or heard before. It's a development process. So, here is a place that I wanted to just take you guys in order to help you develop and brainstorm ideas on what you could talk about. There are some people that they do podcasts. Let's see if I can find something. As we talked about in previous, this was Tamar Braxton's podcast as a celebrity. She created her own podcasting platform. After her own personal struggles, she decided to transition to talking about things through podcast. And as I also said before, singer Ciara, she developed her own podcast with multiple episodes just to keep things relevant. Most people, when you see that they are doing podcasts and stuff, what a lot of celebrities were doing were keeping themselves on people's minds, even though they couldn't really do too much in the certain circumstances that we were living in, but it opened up doors for a lot of people to turn to podcasting. What else? Going to pull up one. Let's see if anybody remembers this. I believe they're still doing the show. This was the morning show I listened to every morning growing up when I was in college, high school. My dad would have this on the radio when I was going to school in the morning. This is a good view that if you wanted to develop a website on podcasting, this is something of what it might look like if you wanted to develop a podcasting web page for your podcast. What works well for you. And there are other pages. You can see profiles, so on and so forth. You can look at episodes. The different episodes, topics, podcasts associated with what it is that they're talking about, other sponsors, so on and so forth. A lot of people may have forgotten this. Everybody knows who she is, but people may have forgotten this. But Wendy Williams. Wendy Williams initially started out in doing podcasts. She was a radio host. She started doing radio years ago. And that was actually what got her start in order to develop her to be able to get the talk show that we know that she has now. It was her open door to develop her into what it is that she is now. But hey, some people, you may not want to go that far. Maybe that's not your goal. Maybe you just want to just express what it is that you're desiring to express currently in your current state. Now, I'm not sure, but I think from what I'm understanding and seeing here, it seems like she might even still be doing podcasting or radio hosting. These may just be old episodes, but let's see. Yeah, this is where she started. She started on radio. And that's where her sound was developed. But a lot of people, when they're just seeking out, trying to figure out, people want that. Some people want that. You may or may not want that. But podcasting is something that you can do. And you can go from multiple different areas. Point being is that when you are developing, you can develop a podcast on just about anything that you desire, but you have to just plot out, what do I want to talk about? Where do I want to go with this? What's my overall arcing theme? Where am I taking people? Are you going to try to sell products? If so, how are you going to align the things that it is that you are developing for what it is that you want? All of these things come not only with the brainstorming element, but with business plan. So, in our next episode, we're going to be discussing the business plan. This is Taj McCameron for podcast development. And until next time, I'll see you shortly.